Thought it was gonna be quiet this morning, but might be a little bit noisy because there's some guys over there that are fucking doing some work on the balcony or whatever. But whatever, it's good to sit down and gonna be able to practice a little bit of Stoicism. So today I wanted to focus on talking about how to actually use Stoicism, because in the past, maybe 4 years ago when I first started improving myself, I looked into Stoicism quite significantly, especially like Marcus Aurelius and different other philosophers, both Greek and Roman. And I came to understand that those philosophers at the time, the Stoics, and how things that they've said today, and how how it's translated what they've said in the past today, doesn't really apply 100%. It isn't 100% accurate. There's a common mistake that many people do, and many people adapt and obtain and adopt whenever they start looking into Stoicism for the first time. And basically what ends up happening is you become extremely cold towards other people. You become extremely intolerant to other things. This is what happened to me. When I first looked into Stoicism, slowly I started becoming this very cold individual where I just didn't give a shit about anything else. Literally every single time somebody would have a chat with me or try and talk to me, or would be in a group where I was a part of and I was talking, I would tell them what would be the right thing to do, but I would tell it in a way that made me seem as if I knew better than everybody else and I was the asshole. And so it made me realize over dozens and hundreds of discussions that by doing this, you're actually not really adapting and appropriating yourself exactly the principles of what Stoics actually portrayed. So I wanted to clear that up a little bit and talk a little bit about that, because it's a problem that I've had in the past, and I know that it doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but I know that there are some people that they're making this mistake, and this is something you need to watch out for. So what I'm talking about concerns the people, for the most part, who learn Stoicism, who read about Stoicism, who really want to embody those principles, but find themselves not doing what it actually means. So the problem with this is you might read up on philosophy, you might read up on Stoicism, you might read up on all of these things. For instance, you might read a couple different books like Meditations, or different books about old stories or myths or legends about the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, the Anabasis, those kinds of stories. And what happened for me personally at the very start is it made me a very bitter person, a very cold person. And whenever I would interact with other people, I would treat them as inferior to me, as lesser people than I was, because I was the Stoic. I was embodying these principles, and since they weren't, for the most part, all of these people were below me, which doesn't make any sense at the end of the day, because that's not what Stoicism is about. Stoicism is becoming the person that is so unbelievably calm and in control of himself that he doesn't need to care about anybody else. And he doesn't need to treat anybody else with disrespect, or belittle them, or treat them with in a bad way. The point of Stoicism is to become completely fine with yourself and understand your emotions. Don't discard them. This is what I did at the start. I discarded my emotions and thought they were fucking retarded and stupid and I shouldn't listen to them and whatnot. Now, thinking back to it, I think that was the wrong thing to do, because understanding your emotions is actually way more powerful and way more useful than just casting them aside. And so, if you want to be somebody fully in control of yourself and do your best and improve on a day-to-day basis, which is the basic philosophy of the Stoics, then you need to understand this core principle of you need to understand your emotions. You need to understand your feelings. You need to understand your mind, your body, everything, and how it works in cohesion together. Because as soon as you understand this, you're able to do way more with the current abilities that you have at your disposal. And so, by practicing this every single time you go out there, you talk to people, you interact with people, you take things, you give things, you do things. By applying this principle of keeping yourself in control and self-control, you're able to enact upon the world what it is you desire. Now, I'll give you a little bit of an example of something that happened whenever I started, I guess, learning this philosophy and so on. I was in a lot of different groups of self-improvement and so on, and one of them specifically, I was at a quite, I guess you could say, high position in the hierarchy of the group in status, which now looking back to it wasn't that much, but it is what it is. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, I was in a position where I was basically just like giving advice to people, and the advice I was giving was very good advice, but it wasn't presented in a way that made people want to learn it or to use it, if that makes sense. So basically what I would do is somebody would start talking about like, hey, does anybody want to play video games? And I would tell them like, why the fuck are you talking about video games? And then he would say like, oh, I was just thinking because there's a lot of people on this server, so I thought I could find some of you guys to play with. And I told him like, we don't do that here. We focus on improving ourselves. We don't. What are you gonna do? What the fuck are you even gonna play? Are you a fucking loser? Are you gonna just be a loser with everybody else? Are you gonna project loserdom on the rest of the group just because you want to be a lazy fuck? And the guy I would tell that to would get extremely defensive about it. He'd be like, what the fuck's your problem? You're a piece of shit. Why the fuck are you talking to me like that? Da da da. And over the course of a couple months, this is how I treated people. If they didn't fit within my standards or within my vision of reality, I would just tell them how pathetic and how much of a loser they were. This is quite interesting actually, because this is something I've completely stopped doing with the people I interact with now. People I interact with now, it's completely different. I empathize with people now, and I don't really care about anybody else other than myself and the people I can help. If you don't want to be helped, I can't help you. So basically what happened was I would have these arguments with these people that would last hours sometimes for no reason other than purely belittling another person or forcing him to abdicate into a better version of reality because I thought I knew better than he did. Looking back at it now, I think that was not a very good idea, because it just made him bitter. It made him angry, not towards the world, but towards me. And it didn't make him angry at himself either. It made him angry at me because I was treating him in a bad way. And so I had to really, really think through and think about how can I package my explanation, my guidance, my help towards these other people in a way that makes them feel like, oh, this guy actually understands what I'm going through and he's not just telling me I'm a piece of shit loser. Because telling somebody he's a piece of shit loser is what helped me the most get out of my comfort zone. Because when I was in my comfort zone, I had nobody ever told me I was a pathetic loser. Everybody told me I was the best, I was so good, I was so smart, and I always got a bunch of compliments. Or I didn't get anything. Nobody actually told me I was a loser at all. And so when somebody said that for the first time, I felt like really taking a deep look at myself in the mirror and thinking to myself, is what he's saying actually true? Is there truth to what he's actually told me right then and there? Because if there isn't, why would he have said that? This allowed me to take some time to actually do some inward reflection, some self-reflection on myself to figure out exactly what he was talking about. And this is when I figured out, I'm actually treating these people like garbage. Of course they're not going to take my advice. Because I'm not putting myself in their shoes. I'm not putting myself in their position. If I was in their position and somebody was treating me the same way, I would have probably not really understood, or I would have probably not really taken the advice 100%. And that's the biggest difference. So, for some people, it might work to shame them or to make them understand that there's an aspect of social shame and social conformism that is necessary. But for some other people, it just doesn't work. They just tell you, yeah, fuck off, bro. Like, I don't give a fuck. So I'm making this video to go over what my version of Stoicism actually is. And for the most part, it is something I've basically embodied over the past couple years. And I've refined and reiterated and improved and upgraded over the past couple years. And I sit here today leading by example. I think the core principle is leading by example, doing the best thing you can and seeing what other people think about what you do and not what you have to say. Because your actions carry way more weight than your words. If I tell people, hey, I'm going to do this, and I don't do it, then my word loses value. But if I tell people, hey, I'm going to do this, and then I do it, my word increases in value in the eyes of the people I told it to. This is an extremely important concept, especially when it comes to business, when it comes to personal relationships, when it comes to getting respect from other people. You command respect by who you are, not by what you say. You command respect by what you do. And this is extremely important because the Stoics used to say that a man who is not in control of himself is a slave to somebody else, or something like that. Something like, if you are not in control and you react to how other people make you feel, they are your master. You are their slave. You are either a slave to your emotions, or a slave to how somebody else makes you feel, or a slave to your employer, or a slave to your garrison commander, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, everybody is a slave to something. And Stoics would preach being so much so in control of yourself that you become the master of your own mind, the master of yourself. And as soon as you've done that, as soon as you've acquired that, as soon as you can preach that, then with like utmost certainty and ownership and self-belief, 100% of your own being, then in that case, you've reached the state of what other Stoics would call the peak. The peak of control, the peak of self-mastery, the peak of controlling yourself, of being a real Stoic. And this means that whenever somebody is coming towards you with good news or bad news, you take the information in and then you decide how you react. You don't just react blindly. You don't react in a fit of rage when somebody insults you. You don't really react in a sad way. You don't start crying when somebody brings sad news to you and one of your relatives has died. You don't start crying. You don't start laughing out of nowhere just because somebody said something funny. You choose to laugh at what somebody else said because it is the right time to do so, and you've decided that you will be doing this. You decide to get angry because it benefits you in this current moment. You decide what you do, how you react, how you act. That is the core principle of Stoicism, of deciding who you are and what you do, instead of just being reactive to everything around you. Because if you react to everything, you're just going to end up being somebody else's slave. You're going to end up doing what other people want you to do. And that doesn't necessarily fit in exactly with who you might want to become. So if you have a very specific goal, a specific vision of reality that you want reality to be, then you need to be able to sit down and think for yourself, what can I do? How can I control reality? How can I control myself in order to bend reality to my will? Because it is only by doing that that you become the master of what you want, the master of yourself, the master of your sail, your boat. That is your life. And so this is a bit of a different type of video that I'm used to recording. Usually I talk about how to improve yourself, a lesson I've learned, or what could you start thinking about or taking action upon. What I want you guys to take from this video is a sort of a mindset change. Of instead of thinking about everybody else as being lesser than you are, just understand that everybody is on a different stage of understanding the world and how it works. And some people are ignorant, some people are very stupid, some people understand it but still decide to ignore it willingly. And some people are like us actually take the lessons to heart and actually make a change in our behavior, our actions, our lives. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. If this is the kind of content you're interested in watching, let me know in the comments. If not, I'll keep doing the regular videos and won't talk too much about abstract concepts as much. And with that said, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Stick around, I post videos every single day. And with that said, I will see you in the next one tomorrow. See ya.